Hi, everybody. Quick debrief on problem number 8 about declaring classes. These were pretty much straight out of the summer homework problem sets 4 and 6, especially this version of the quiz rectangle, because that was literally the example in the summer homework. The other version of the quiz student, I'll do both. I'm going to try and keep this short and sweet, and if you want a more thorough explanation, go back and watch those videos in Somerset 4 and Somerset 6, which I will link. Okay, so we're making a rectangle object. The job of the constructor is to give initial values to the attributes of the object. So when you say new rect, you're saying I want to make a new rectangle, and here is going to be its top left x coordinate, its top left y coordinates, width, and its height. These parameters here just hold the input numbers when you run the constructor. They're temporary. These variables go away as soon as the constructor is done. So that's why you have to save them into permanent attributes. That's what we're doing here. And so when I say add attributes, fields is another word for attributes. When I say add fields up here, you can see the names that they have to have right here. That's why I said look at the constructor. It's because it's got to match what's in the constructor. So this would be a great answer. You don't have to declare each variable on its own line. It is valid Java syntax to have a comma-separated list like this. But what I want you to notice is we are taking the parameter variables here, putting them on the right, and assigning them to the attributes on the left. And the attributes are the permanent variables that describe your object up here. Okay, so then let's fix the focus. Okay, so regular getter methods, the purpose is to allow somebody to ask what the value of a variable is. So even though I left this unimplemented, getLeft would almost certainly do something like this. It would say return and then x, because the attribute x is the x coordinate of the left-hand side of the rectangle. GetRight, we don't have a single variable that stores the coordinate of the right-hand side of the rectangle, but we can calculate it based on the variables we have. If you imagine a rectangle where this is the xy coordinate, and then this is the width, you can see that the right-hand side of the rectangle should be the x coordinate of the left-hand side plus the width. So that would be a great answer. You don't have to say this.x and this.w. The keyword this is only required if there are two different variables that have the same name, and so there's an ambiguity. A couple people tried to use these parameters. They tried to say top left x here, or they tried to say width here. These variables don't exist as soon as the constructor is done running. So the other methods have to refer to the permanent attributes that are declared at the top. GetPerimeter, a surprising number of people did not calculate the perimeter correctly. Perimeter is width plus height, or like 2 times the height plus 2 times the width. So it would look like this, like that. Okay, this method is what the video in Somerset 6 was about. It's like, how can I have my own rectangle compare itself to some other rectangle object? I'm going to do it slightly less than the best way, but it's the way that makes the most sense if it's your first time seeing it, and then you can watch the Somerset 6 video to see the slightly better way. So what I want to do is I want to get my own perimeter, because that's how we're deciding who's larger. We're going to look at who's got the larger perimeter. So the way I'm going to get my own perimeter is I'm going to run my own getPerimeter method. Because remember, it's a particular rectangle object that's running this method. And so that rectangle is trying to decide, am I bigger than the other one? So it's going to run its own getPerimeter method. You could write this.getPerimeter. And then we're going to ask, is that bigger than other.getPerimeter? Because the other variable is a different rectangle object. And so I can run rectangle methods on it. So I can ask the other rectangle, what's your perimeter? What's my perimeter? If mine is larger, then we'll return true because I'm bigger. Otherwise, we'll return false. So that would be a fine answer. Check the other video for a slightly shorter way to do it. Okay, the final thing is toString, which was like a big thing that I emphasized in the Somerset 4 video. The toString method is how your object looks when you put it in a print statement. So if I create a rect variable and I try and print that variable, toString gets run automatically. So we wouldn't put void here because it needs to return a string. Specifically, it's returning the string that we want to display in that print statement. And then I wouldn't do any printing here. I don't have system.out.println. I just return the string for how I would want it to look. You can imagine saying, let's convert my rectangle to a string. That's how I think about toString. We're going to convert it to a string representation. So it can be whatever you want. Like I said, you could do this, have the letter W colon and then the width, and then the letter H colon and then the height. If we were really doing this, we would probably want X, Y. You'd want to list the value of a lot of the variables, something like that. But I just wanted to make sure that you got the idea that it returns a string rather than displaying a string. Okay, let's go down the student class. So same situation. Here I've got parameters getting assigned to attributes. So I've got to declare the attributes up here with the appropriate data types. There they are. They are all private, and they have the variables that match here. Get grade percent. So write a getter method that returns their grade percentage. And again, here I'm checking to make sure that you're going to return the attribute grade, and you're not going to try and return this parameter percent, because percent stops existing as soon as the method is done running. Is B day. So remember, A day at our school are blocks 1, 2, 3, and 7. B days, the blocks are 4, 5, and 6. So if I'm going to decide if their class is happening on a B day, I just have to ask, is it blocks 4, 5, or 6? So you could have 3 separate if statements. Is it 4? Is it 5? Is it 6? Or you could say, is block larger than or equal to 4 and also less than or equal to 6? Because then it's still in the range of the B day blocks. And if so, I'll return true. Otherwise, I'll return false. Again, there's a one-line solution that does this a little bit shorter. You can check out Somerset 6 video to see how to do that. Here is a method that's similar to the is larger than method for rectangles. It's again, the student object that runs this method is trying to decide something about its relationship to a different student object. So this object can only study with the other student if they share the same block and if their grade percentages aren't too different. So let's test those two conditions. So we'll test if this object's block equals the other object, and I'm going to ask for the other object's block. So are the two blocks equal? If so, let's do the other test. Here, let's open a block. I think I'm actually going to get both grade percentages and then find their difference. So I'm going to get my own grade percentage. I'm going to ask the other object for its grade percentage. The reason I'm using math.absolute value is because whichever one is larger, we would want to start with that one and subtract the other one in order to find the difference. But I don't know which one is larger. So absolute value is just going to tell me the distance between them. If you used if statements here to try and say, if G1 is larger, then look at G1 minus G2. Otherwise, look at G2 minus G1. That's okay. I didn't actually specify if the grade percentage was between 0 and 1 or if it was between 0 and 100. So I'll just interpret based on the number you have written here. So it doesn't have to be 0.2. If you wrote 20, that's totally fine. However, you do need to return true only if both of these conditions are satisfied. Otherwise, you need to return false to indicate they can't study with each other. ToString I won't do for this one, but it's just the same as the other one. Okay. If you want to, go back and watch the videos from Somerset 4 and 6 because I go over it more slowly and more carefully. Try the examples if you want to do some recovery problems. Good luck.